Hey, welcome to Creative Blog. We're your hosts, V.
And Sean, aka Lord Spew. We talk shop with other creatives in animation and comics about things like finding our artistic path or the process of making art while we doodle on Magma.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. If you haven't yet, check out our Patreon and subscribe to our channel.
Today, we have with us Emily Brundage. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Sean doesn't remember meeting me, but we met a long time ago.
I was like, oh my God, so good to meet you.
It was like a
You've worked on so many
ago.
cool things. It's so incredible to meet you. And then you were like, we've already met, and I like wanted to like rip off my
just trying
skin.
to make you feel bad.
So how long ago was this meeting? While we talk about it.
Yeah.
This was like 2012, I would say.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed that you remember me and that long ago. But it's a pleasure to get to know you again here, and you've had quite the journey since then.
Yes.
You've written on a lot of shows here.
Yes, it's true.
Where do you feel like that started? Because I mean, everyone's always talking about how to get their first gig, and even after that, like how to keep rolling on that. Where do you feel like it really locked in and you were like, oh, like I'm doing this as a career?
I got my foot in the door with a YouTube series called Pubertina. And because that had millions of views and I was getting invited around town to pitch shows because of that, I was also kind of discovering that I was not a storyboard artist and that my strength was in writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know starting out that there were writing jobs in animation. And then when I figured that out, I realized that's the route I needed to take.
Who's writing those things?
Yeah, exactly. One of those that lurks in the shadows. But yeah, I got my first staff writing job on Star versus the Forces of Evil with Darren Nefsey. And then that helped me get other jobs. I did a freelance for Warner Brothers. And then I was staffed on a show called Home at Dreamworks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I had pitched a show based on the Harvey Girls comics. And they chose my vision, went into development for like a year and a half. And it got greenlit. And so I started show running that. But that went downhill for kind of reasons outside of my control. And so I got laid off from that. And then Hilda and DC Superhero Girls picked me up off my feet. And after writing a freelance episode for Hilda, I got hired as this head writer, story editor for season 3. And that was a really, really cool project to be a part of and to riff on and everything. And then I got hired as a head writer on a show called Big Nate at Nickelodeon. And that was like classic sitcom writing, pretty much. It was 22 minutes and, sitcom structure.
No, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm just going on and
no,
on.
No, I wanted to. I mean, there's a few things that I want to talk about in there, but one of them is, at what part in that process, did you kind of feel steady, like you were like, oh, like I'm a writer in animation, like I can get these jobs?
I think I felt steady truthfully, I felt really steady by 2019 when I got that job on Hilda. And then I went pretty much straight from that to Big Nate. And then I did that during lockdown.
Wow.
And then I created my own show, which we can get into. But
Of course.
yeah.
Like in those early job days, I think at a certain point you probably get to a point where you're transitioning from one show to another based on the people that you know, or your kind of your trajectory or momentum a little bit. But in those early days, how were you getting these jobs or searching for these jobs,
Hmm.
or like did you ever have to like do did you ever have to do anything strange to get a job? Like, yeah, I'm curious about your like
Um,
how you got these
so
projects.
it was mostly my doing. So, well, I knew Darren through friends, because we both went to Cal Arts, so we were in different programs. And she loved Pubertina, so she kind of took a chance on me because it was my first staff writing job.
Well,
So basically, because of Pubertina, and then I got invited also to pitch shows because of Pubertina, and I started selling shows. But oh, and then Home was because of Thurup Van Orman,
Mm-hmm.
oh, nice.
and I had he was kind of my mentor starting out, and I had given him my comics at a flapjack panel years ago, and he really liked them and was really sweet, and we became friends. And then when he got that show, he asked me to test on it and then hired me.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, some of it was like my hustling and some of it was because of Pubertina, I'd say.
Well, shout out to Thurup Van Orman, episode 171. We, we for sure enjoy him, and I can see that connection and why
Oh
he would
yeah,
like you. I
he was a big
And
inspiration to me. I really loved Flapjack.
shout out to Darren Nefsey, episode 57 for everybody listening. I wanted to ask you so you said you were on a different program. What did you go to CalArts
Oh,
for? Were you character
I
animation?
went for grad school.
Mm-hmm.
So I had gone to UC Berkeley for undergrad, and I had studied creative writing and uh, art practice.
Mm.
And then when I got into the experimental MFA program at Cal Arts, and I was very ecstatic. Yeah. So do you know what about the different programs at Cal Arts?
Well, I like to ask because we've had a couple of like guests going into experimental, and I feel like
Uh,
experimental is like not often really talked about at CalArts.
uh-huh.
So, um, and did you make Pubertina as your thesis film?
Yeah, it was actually my first year film.
Oh,
And
really?
then,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, and then when I pitched it to the Shut Up Cartoons people, the Smosh people, I they offered to give me a small budget to make 10 episodes, and that became my thesis as well, because it was like the evolution
Whoa.
from my first short to
Is
my thesis.
is it okay to ask for what the budget was? And the reason why I asked
Oh
is
yeah, I
because
don't mind.
okay, cool.
Um, so it was 30,000 for 10 3 to 4 minute episodes or 3 to 5 minute episodes.
3 to 5 minutes episode. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's really it's funny like these tiny budgets that are kind
Hmm.
of like floated around by these companies to kind of like
Hmm.
try out an idea. How so early in your career you're faced with like okay a little bit a budget. How did you use it? Did you hire people, and what
Yeah.
kind of talent did you prioritize for these shorts?
Um, so I ended up hiring, I had been interning at Titmouse, doing animation cleanup.
Mm,
And I hired basically my buddy there who I was cleaning up his drawings. His name's Josh Karen.
mhm.
A really great dude. But he did most of the animation for Pubertina, and then sometimes I'd have to well, a lot of the time I would have to bring in additional animators to get them done. Um, but everything else, well, no, and I paid my composer slash co-songwriter, Paul Fraser. I think I paid him like 600 a short,
Mhm.
but which is not a lot, but most of the money went towards the animation and eventually the storyboarding. Um,
Oh, did you also hire a storyboard artist?
well, I ended up hiring, first I was doing the storyboards, but I just realized that Josh would do them way better. So I paid it, I paid him more, and he ended up just doing both.
Now, was it hard, kind of giving over the visual side of it, and over the years, has it been something that you've missed, or do you find little places to use that skill set and plug it in?
Mm. Like the drawing side of
Yeah.
Mhm.
things. Um, yeah, I mean, I think sometimes with the shows I create, like for instance with Goldie, I did like a series of scribbles of kind of the shape idea I wanted, and just really preliminary drawings. And I showed that to Cheyenne Curtis, who ended up doing the designs
Oh
for the
man, that's
short.
so sick.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's one of my best friends. Yeah, so what was I saying?
Handing over the because you're also an artist, but you're handing
Yeah.
over in a lot of your projects, like kind of like the
Yeah, I guess what I've held on to, sorry. What I still maintain is I have a very strong taste and good taste in art, and I look at things with an art background, and uh and I feel like it makes it a little easier for me to describe to art directors the kind of vibe I want.
yeah, because you have like
Yes,
the words, like the terminology to kind of
Yeah.
like more accurately communicate it. But
I
the
think
quick
so.
quick
Yeah.
shout out to Cheyenne episode 56 for people listening. Plugging
How are
everyone.
you pulling
I,
out those numbers out so quickly?
I,
Google, my friend.
I feel
Okay.
like we're like, is it like Pokemon masters trying to
I
catch them
know,
all?
right? Yeah.
If you even talk about someone in the industry, oh yeah, that's episode 137. We've already
Gotta
captured
catch them
them.
all.
I
Gotta
feel
catch
like
them
that all the
all.
time. I'm like, wow, catch them all, the
Yeah, we
animators.
we throw
By the way,
a creative block and it traps them in a little cube.
Forever.
um, by the way, there are so many Pokemon.
It's
Too
like too
many.
many. It's like
It's
too
too
many
many.
for me to even like think about anymore.
This
I
is like
got
how
yeah.
we out ourselves as millennials because it's that thing where I'm like, I know 150. That's all. That's
Yeah,
all. That's where
like
I
the
stop.
starter ones in the actual Game Boy game, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
being a new like little kid who's trying to get into it, and you're like, oh, like cute little monsters, that's cool, and then you're like, how many do I need to memorize and learn about? And then there's like, oh, 2,347, and you have to try to
Yeah,
catch them
yeah.
all, and you're like, I don't have enough time in the day. I have math homework.
Yeah. My daughter likes Pokemon a lot, and she sometimes I let her pick a book out from the children's bookstore around here. And the last book she picked was like the Pokemon encyclopedia or
Oh my
dictionary,
god.
whatever, of all the Pokemon. And like, so whenever she wants to read it at night or look over it,
Yeah.
like we get through like in 1/16th,
Is she strong
Ah,
enough to
you know.
lift it?
Um,
Like, is it huge?
Barely. But she also loves Pokemon cards, but she doesn't play the game. We just play our own game where we throw them at each other.
That's what we did when I was in middle school, elementary school.
Oh,
Like
really?
we would, dude. So the card games, and we would do this with any card game, with like Magic the Gathering, Dragon Ball, Pokemon. We all did it. The way we played the We put them on the ground and we would slide them really fast. And if the card landed on top of the other person's card, it meant that you won.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
That was
Well,
a
it's kind of like that, except she always wins.
game. Shall we? That's so funny.
I love how like those like poor card designers are like putting all these little attacks and like all these hit points and stuff on it. It doesn't even matter because people are just sliding
Yeah.
them across at each other fast.
I just want the stop motion ones, or like, there are some that are like clay photograph of like Pokemon sculpted from clay.
Oh
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's like
Those are really artsy. I want those.
they are cool.
I
Um,
was gonna ask a little bit. So, what's cool about doing Pubertina when you were in Cal Arts is that you're
mhm.
already basically show running because you're delegating to so many different people. Um, do you feel like having this experience, you're still at this point, you're still like a student,
Yeah,
and but you're getting these meetings, and
Mhm.
so how do you approach all of the meetings that you're getting, and also how do they reach out to you? At that time, do you already have a manager, or is it or are they just in your email you're getting like,
Mhm.
hey, Netflix wants to meet or whatever? Probably,
Yeah, yeah. After I made Pubertina and it had been on YouTube for a bit, uh, UTA reached out to me, the agency, and I got my first agent, and I was her first client too. But yeah, so then I was getting the jobs like either through her, or through someone who wanted to hire me and called up my agent.
Mm.
So I worked at one of the first things I did professionally was I did some work at Fox ADHD.
Oh, very
Um,
cool.
hey,
Yeah.
and I sold a show to them called Breakfast Town.
Oh,
Um,
can you tell us how that went? Okay, because Fox
yeah,
ADHD, for people listening, I mean, we've talked about it a bunch on the show. Now I think it's kind of gone, right? It's kind of
yeah,
RIP
it
Fox
yeah,
is
ADHD.
gone, which means you can talk all the shit you want.
yeah.
But the people are still around. How was the experience pitching to them? Because it was a very tiny offshoot of Fox, and they're trying
Hmm,
things. Would you say it's fair to
yeah,
say they were trying to be like Adult Swim, but the Fox version?
yeah, yeah, totally. So it was run by this guy named Nick Weidenfeld, and I pitched to him and another producer there.
Mm.
And I pitched like three things, and they picked the one I wasn't expecting to
Oh yeah.
sell, Breakfast Town. I really love Breakfast Town. It was like Twin Peaks, but if the town was obsessed with breakfast. And then I started getting invited to pitch more places, so I sold another show to Disney and one to Nickelodeon, and then one to Cartoon Network. Um,
When you say you sold a show, because I think for people listening, they
yeah,
might not understand the difference between selling a show and making a show. Uh,
right, right, right. None of these shows got made. I just
I-
went into development.
so tell us a little bit about what the development process is like, especially what it means, like the different like stages. Does it
Yeah,
are you,
yeah,
like um uh, how different it is between a pitch, like the
uh-huh.
material you bring to the pitch and what you do in development.
Yeah, so bringing the pitch, it's just like trying to prove that your idea isn't show that your idea isn't like half baked, and you have the basics down about this world and these characters and how the stories would work. So
Mm,
it's giving them a taste of
mhm,
what could be the show. And then when you get into development, you basically have to create a proof of concept for the show, or that's what you're aiming towards.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you do some more development that makes the Bible longer, or you usually write a pilot
Mm-hmm.
or work with the writer to write a pilot if you don't feel, you can do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then if it, so these are typical, or how it used to be was that these were stages. So
Mm-hmm.
you would write the pilot, then you'd have a board artist board the pilot, then you would pitch the boards to the executives. And at Cartoon Network, I know that was, and Disney, that was the place where your project either died or
Mm-hmm.
went forward more.
Right. So the
Yeah.
animatic, the wow, the pitch,
Yeah, not the animatic, the board
the boards,
pitch.
yeah.
So animatic would be another phase, like, oh yeah, we like this. We want to see this moving in an animatic and hire
Mm-hmm.
actors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like my husband had a show at Cartoon Network that was stop motion,
Mm.
and he and his partner got funding to do like a fully animated proof of concept. Um, so it just depends on how committed they are, like
Right.
how much money they want to spend on it.
When
So,
you,
But things have changed a lot.
yeah, tell us about the
mhm.
differences now. Like, what's the
Yeah,
difference in
yeah.
pipeline? But because
Well,
I was
yeah,
familiar with that one, but
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just now entering. When did you say it changed? And yeah, and how did it change?
I guess it's not so much that it changed, but it seemed to me that um, writing the pilot was the most important thing.
Mhm.
I see.
So sometimes I don't think they did a pilot animatic until it was in production. And like this was true, I think, with Big Nate, the show I was on. Um,
Oh,
and
you guys didn't
yeah,
do the pilot before entering production?
well, he wrote the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a really polished script, and they had started looking at designs and stuff, but it was greenlit pretty early in that sense, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like Netflix started doing that a lot. I would
Back when they
say
were throwing shows at everyone.
Mhm.
exactly. My first experience with that as a just as an artist was on I think Captain Fall. When I was directing on Captain Fall, that was my first experience with Netflix just going
Hmm.
basically giving a green light almost literal on the script. And
Hmm.
then everybody in production has to figure out the style of like boarding,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
Yeah, that
yeah.
sucks. So the thing that was really cool about the Goldie process was that they had built in a development period into the schedule.
Hmm.
So there were a few months devoted to me working with the art director on nailing down the style and character designs. So, and a lot of that was informed by my short
Hmm.
for Goldie. So we had like a clear um, resource for the
Mhm.
language we wanted to use in the show.
Hmm.
It seems like a big part of your career has been pitching. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like you've maybe even gotten writing work from pitching, like in kind of
Mm-hmm.
introducing yourself as a voice. How has your strategy with pitching over the years changed through all these projects?
I think one way that it's changed is I make sure that I explain I show why I want to make the show and like what it how it connects to me as a person.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and before I didn't really do that because I think people were like didn't expect that. They are just like wanted your cartoony show kind of. Um,
Do you have an
but
example of that?
yeah.
Like maybe for Goldie, like how would you explain
Yeah, for
something more recent? Yeah.
Goldie, I like at the very top of my pitch, I pretty quickly like state my mission, like how I want girls to feel watching the show and all that good stuff.
Mm.
And I think that that resonates more because it's just a little more personal, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's one thing that has changed that I've like it's caused me to think back and be like, why didn't I do that before? I should have done that.
I feel like it takes a minute. I mean, I know like
Mm-hmm.
pitching, they always like recently they've kind of, I mean recently over the past five
mhm,
years, I guess they're like, you have to say the why you are doing the show and all
right.
that. And I
Yeah.
hate doing that part so much because I'm like I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's so important.
Yeah. And you need to show you're in touch with your emotions.
Yeah.
um,
How do
yeah.
you come up with show ideas nowadays? Because I'm sure you're still pitching. Do you start with the premise, the idea, or do you start with your feeling and how you're connected to the idea you're trying to pitch?
I think for shows that I'm really passionate about, it's the latter.
Mm.
Um, I think, you know, I can come up with good show ideas that I don't want to make, you know? um, yeah, I mean, with what was it?
Oh, just kind of like how did you kind of like, what's your process coming up with the show? Because like, I'm
Well, if
sure
you
like,
read my book, A Guide to Developing Animated Shows, you would see that I
yes,
hey
Yeah, plug it, plug it.
plug it.
okay, well, this is like a little ad break to tell you all that I spent the past year writing a book about developing animated shows, taking all of my experience and all my secrets, spilling all my secrets into this book. And I recently released it finally as an ebook, self published. And it's been getting insanely cool praise
Oh,
Oh
from
yeah.
showrunners
that's so sick.
like Jorge Gutierrez really loved it and called it like the holy grail for people starting to develop shows. Um, and the coolest thing, perhaps, that's happened is Joe Brum, the creator of Bluey, read my book
Oh wow.
Wow.
and loved it and gave me a like a quote to use, and also
Oh my God.
I sent a thank you letter to him and he sent me back like a I was not expecting this, like a personal note.
Mm.
um and he's just it like gives you faith um when this world it's full of really fake people and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But
Yeah.
it's nice when the most successful cartoon creator in the world would take the time to read a book that was suggested to him. Yeah, anyways, that was pretty amazing and continues to be. But yeah, so it's been doing pretty well. And yeah, people seem to really like it. And I was just invited to do a book event at an animation expo. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it's felt really good because as you know, the industry's been really rough
Mm-hmm.
lately. And
Yeah.
so I actually think it's a really good time to focus on yourself and your ideas and like figure out what you want to prioritize.
And what has the conversation with like yourself been like? Like what are you thinking about prioritizing? Because like I think you're making a great
Yeah.
point about the industry. We're all feeling the shift.
Yeah.
We've been maybe a little shy on the podcast about
Mm-hmm.
talking about that because
Mm.
we wanted to try to keep it positive, but now things are looking in a way that
I feel like it is positive though. Like I feel kind of liberated by the fact that this is forcing me to work on myself.
yeah.
That's and also I think like you said, the industry is shifting and in some ways, maybe it's not a bad thing.
But yeah, I think it's really important what you're talking about. The industry is shifting, and I have been feeling similarly in terms of like we have to understand what we're trying to do as creators and not
Hmm.
let go of that and just finding a different way to kind of put that into the world. So what are you kind of how are you looking at creating now in this world
Yeah.
that's so unstable with this industry being so unstable?
Yeah. So basically, at the beginning of the year, when I was kind of in despair, I mean, I was getting work once in a while on development projects, like all developing IP that exists. And so that was fine, but I was starting to feel like my soul was being crushed because I wasn't working on any of my own projects.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I just decided there was this show that I was really personal to me that I had pitched once to a studio, and kind of sent it around a little bit, but it was really weird and not the kind of show that anyone wanted to make.
Yeah.
So,
Could you kind of
so
tell us why, like, you're like nobody wanted to make it? Is it like
well,
in
first
broad
of
strokes?
all,
Yeah.
it's loosely inspired by my family, who are Jewish Hungarian immigrants who survived the Holocaust
Mm-hmm.
and had to immigrate to get away from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a little bit, though I think I handle it in a really lighthearted way. In the show, I basically make a metaphor for Nazis, like
Right.
Yellow Submarine, the blue meanies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so these are kind of like those characters, but they're the sour grumpires,
I see.
and
Yeah.
they like sour grapes. Uh, they outlawed strawberry draining because my show is called Strawberry Vampire. Sorry, that was a really backwards way of talking about the project.
Putting you on the spot. Uh, no, that's really interesting. Yeah, I was wondering, and if it was because of like the subject matter, and that's pretty much what you're saying is like because the subject matter is so
Yeah,
deep. It's like
yeah,
sometimes studios can get like really worried about that.
yeah. I mean, the word Holocaust just
Yeah.
freaks people out. Even though it wasn't like I was going to talk about it on the show in any way, I was just explaining like where the whole idea came from.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it isn't supposed to be like a metaphor for a Jewish family necessarily, immigrant family. It's they're vampires, and I want it to be accessible in that way that it's like, yes, based on this immigrant family's experience, but hopefully it should be relatable to a lot of families,
Mm-hmm.
um, feeling like outsiders.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, so I decided to do a Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
And well, first I had written a pilot script that I really loved.
Mm-hmm.
And because I like to make things, I just wasn't satisfied with having a good script. Like, that doesn't really do it for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to see it come to life. And I had never done like a Kickstarter before. So I felt like I had earned it in some way.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. But I made my goal not as crazy as some people have.
What was
Because
your goal?
it was 8,000.
That's good. I think honestly, that's what I've been kind of like thinking about is for Kickstarters, sticking to around 10K or less is the best bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah, that's how I figured. Like, I was terrified of shooting too high and not getting
right.
the funding. So anyways, I decided that making an animatic,
Mm-hmm.
like a fully produced animatic, would get my idea across, the characters across, the tone just fine. And because of the kind people at Mercury Filmworks who I worked, they did Goldie and Hilda.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be animating one scene from it, which is really
Oh, that's so
exciting.
fun.
That's great. I feel like
Um,
that's something that we're seeing a lot more now with people doing animatics and then picking a
yeah,
couple of scenes to just animate. So would you say that's the proof of concept, those animated scenes, or do you call the proof of concept the entire animatic?
the entire animatic
Okay.
would be the proof of concept. But my hope actually is not to sell it to a studio. I don't really want to give any of my babies up anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna keep it as my own project and see where it takes me.
Where are you at with the animatic right now?
So we did our records, and right now, I saw the rough boards
Hmm.
for it. So my board artist is working on the cleans right now, and she should be done by end of May. And then I have an editor that I hired to edit the animatic. And my friends did a song for it for a montage sequence, which I'm really excited
Oh, that's so
about.
fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then when we've locked the animatic, that's when Mercury will start animating the scene.
Nice.
And I also have a composer lined up.
Can you talk a little bit about working with music? Because I feel like even from the beginning, it seems like you've liked to incorporate music, your friends' bands, your friends' projects, and composers into your work. What's the dynamic going back and forth with like writing these songs with them?
So what happened was I did used to write a lot of my own songs and perform them. And then when I started getting into animation, I started collaborating with a composer who I met at CalArts, and his name's Paul Fraser. He was also the composer on Apple and Onion.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but he came on to help me with Pubertina, and through the process of that kind of like grind of making those shorts, we became really good friends. He started like producing my songs. Like even if
Okay.
I had like in Pubertina, most of the songs I wrote and also wrote the melodies for,
Hmm.
and he would like produce it into a real thing in general. So then I was able to hire he and his wife, him, yeah, he and his wife as the songwriters for my show Goldie.
That's so cool.
And they did amazing songs for
So,
it.
if someone were looking to get into, that line of work, composing for
Mm-hmm.
animation, writing songs for animation, um, like, what is that first meeting about the song like? Do you send them lyrics? Do you send them vibes?
Mm-hmm.
Do they make a sketch of a song? Like how?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so basically, um, they get the lyrics and they get like what do you call it? When they what did they call it? Like a little blurb about what it should be like and
Mm,
some examples. And then you test a few composers or songwriters, and hopefully they're paid tests.
mm-hmm,
They were on my show, and we didn't test too many. We just tested like we tested actually a lot for the theme song.
mm-hmm.
But then for the first song of the series, we just tested like 3 or 4 composers.
Wow.
And luckily, yeah.
So you listened. You got to listen to a bunch of parallel universe
Yeah,
theme
yeah.
songs for your
There are a lot of
cartoon.
good theme songs too. There were some
Whoa.
really good ones, but one of them just went out.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, then luckily Paul and his wife wrote the best sample song of
Mm.
the first,
that's
song
great.
of the series. It's actually my favorite song in the series still. But so they got the job.
It's actually your favorite
Um,
song in your iPod. It's actually your number one most listened to on Spotify Wrapped. No, that's awesome.
That's so cool. So, like, let's talk a little bit about Goldie and what that was like, the process, because um you also uh made the short yourself. Like you filmed
mhm.
it all yourself. how did you kind of let's start talking about the short and then we'll talk about the show. How did you fund the short? How did you put the money together?
So I had some savings that I had made through various jobs and stuff, and I decided to put about $4,000
Hmm.
towards it. And I was able to find an animator through a friend who was a really good animator, but also really fast. And so he did it for me for 4,000. And then
Whoa, because it looks really
yeah,
good. Like the animation is
yeah,
really
yeah. He
good.
was so fast. He's actually a pretty well-known YouTuber. Um, his
Oh,
name Zurel, or
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, he made
yeah,
Monkey
yeah,
Wrench.
yeah,
no
yeah,
way. This
yeah,
guy, that's crazy. Yeah, he's
yeah.
really big. At least in the
Yeah, I think he grew, his fandom grew since he did Goldie, um, the short.
Wow.
But it definitely wasn't his like style, I think, but he still did such a great job.
yeah, it
Um,
looked amazing. Holy moly,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
Wait, so did you have the boards? Like so because
Yeah,
obviously
so everything else was done like as a favor, pretty much.
I see.
So my friend Natasha Klein uh did the boards, and then my friend Nico edited it. My friends Paul, the guy, my friend that I work with a lot, he did the score and sound design. Um, and then
Hmm.
my friend German Orozco, who I hired as the art director, he did the backgrounds, like all the backgrounds. But that's why it took so long, because I
Hmm.
was just on his schedule. Um,
Right,
and
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that took the longest, even longer than the animation.
How do you reach that conversation? I think that's something like at least like for me every time I try to like put together a project and I'm like, "Oh, I need people to help out." And I'm like, "Oh, I may not have a lot of money." I mean, obviously they're all your friends, but how do you bring up that conversation? Because sometimes it can be kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like vulnerable, right?
Yeah. I mean, they did it because they loved me and wanted to see the project be
Hmm.
successful. But also, I would say in most of those instances, I had also given them work, professional work,
Hmm.
like at
Hmm.
some point or another. So there was a sense of like, thank you. Here's like, I'm gonna help you with this. Kind of.
Yeah, you were like, you owe me. No, no, no. I'm just
Yeah.
joking. I'm
Yeah,
joking.
yeah.
No,
And
but
also
yeah,
like they knew that they could reach out to me for feedback, you know.
yeah,
Nice.
Um,
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to hear like every time and I like to point this out also for the listeners that like the hardest thing to fund is the actual animation in these shorts
yeah,
because you can find like there's a lot of people here in LA that are talented that you know through the network and everything through pre-production and everything that can do like the boards, the backgrounds, everything. But animation, man, that's the one thing that's so time consuming and you really need
yeah,
yeah, that's where all the money needs to go.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
How is it like for you putting it in festival, Goldie? Because it had a festival run before you started pitching it.
Yeah, so my idea was, I mean, my idea for making it to begin with was I had been in all these um, development on a bunch of projects that, as you guys know, like are
Hmm.
under an NDA and you can't
Hmm.
share ever,
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
supposedly. And so I just really wanted to create something that was mine and like executing on one of my ideas finally, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that was part of the impetus for doing it. And then I also just had a dream of it being a show, like a preschool show. I wanted it though to I wanted to be able to enjoy it for a little bit as just my own thing, independent thing. So that's why I thought it would be good to do the festival run, partly because I could just hold on to it for a while longer and let it like be. But
Hmm.
then also because it helped when I pitched it eventually, that it had like been seen all over the world and won awards and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, because you pitched it to Apple. Apple, I kind of have that feeling that they do like award-winning properties. Like maybe the
Yeah,
book that
yeah,
you pitched.
yeah. It's funny because like when they came out with the press release, I was pretty surprised that in all the press releases that said like based on the award-winning short by Emily Brundage.
Hey,
It's like
yeah.
it
Yeah,
always has to be based on something for it to be like legit or something.
right?
Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like trust us, it's good.
yeah, yeah. But anyways, yeah, I was really happy, felt really lucky that I got to make it.
How so you have the short y- you have the short and you're pitching it to all these different streamers and networks. How different is your pitch Bible when you have a full short? Are you still like is it more fleshed out, less fleshed out, the same? It just
Pretty much the same. Goldie was just a pretty simple show in some respects. Like the cast, I wanted purposefully for like the main cast to be pretty contained,
mm,
and the town location to be pretty contained. So, yeah, I think for that reason, it didn't have to be quite so detailed, but it was
mm.
pretty much your standard pitch deck.
And going into development, since you already have the short, how much did you have to change for the pilot?
On the, oh, so I would say like nothing,
Mhm.
surprisingly.
Whoa.
Just that they, want it was animated on model and stuff. um, which Mercury did kind of like elevate it from the short to something like a really beautiful show.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, nothing really changed except I had always wanted her best friend, her name's Teeny on the show, but I had always wanted her to be black. Um, but when I did the short, I just I didn't like do the real casting process. Like I just looked around at what my resources were, like whose kids I could borrow and stuff. And so that just didn't happen. But then when I got into development on Goldie with Apple, I just had all these resources. And so Teeny, so it became Teeny, her little tiny friend. And we hired a fantastic actress who's adorable. And then her other friend, Petey, he uses a wheelchair on the show. And I could do that specific of a casting. Like we cast a Indian boy because he was Indian who uses a wheelchair. And so the boy who we actually cast has cerebral palsy.
Mhm.
And just, I felt like I could do anything in that respect when it became a show.
Yeah, that's awesome because you have like all the like you have the support and like the
Yeah, we
teams to
have
help you. Hmm.
exactly. We had like a disability expert advisor and everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it just was great to finally have
Hmm.
those resources, like it was amazing.
What I think that brings up an interesting thing to talk about, which is telling stories responsibly, especially
Hmm.
children's stories.
Hmm.
And I know that in general there are usually more rules, more things that S&P pays attention to, things like that. But I'm curious what your journey, like especially going into like children's kind
Hmm.
of show making, what have you had to pay more attention to? What have you like learned to care about, things like that?
Well, I think my show was just a really good fit, first of all, and my style of writing for the show was naturally really sweet and
Mm-hmm.
loving and emotional in a way that little kids can relate to. But one thing that I think I got used to was figuring out like what the message was of each episode,
Yeah.
and not that any of the characters had a speech at the end, like,
Mm.
but just for the process of getting it through the notes process, like we had to pick some kind of message that was different from another episode because XYZ, and make sure that that came through the story. So it couldn't like take a crazy left turn from what we
Yeah.
were trying to say with the story.
Did that ever become a challenge? Like coming up with a message that isn't like a message from another
Yeah,
episode?
well, I'm surprised because like watching the show now, Goldie just like breaks down so often and like cries so
Oh.
often. And like she has a pattern of just like lacking self-confidence, and her like people having to cheer her up and
Mm.
tell her that she's okay. So that comes up a lot, which I think is funny because it's like kind of repetitive in a way. Um, but but yeah, I mean, honestly, to be totally honest, it was kind of a dream process.
Yeah.
I've been on a lot of productions, and I would say mine was the smoothest I've ever been on.
Wow.
Um,
What's
but yeah, another reason though was I had this awesome director at Mercury named Graham McDonald, who was the animation director of the Mickey shorts.
Oh
Mm.
wow. Yeah, these are awesome.
Yeah, he's like an award-winning director, and he was just the perfect fit for me. Like he's just like a really sweet, soft-spoken guy, but really knows his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that was like a beautiful pairing, and I could just trust him
Mhm.
a lot more than I would normally because, and Mercury in general, I felt like I could just relax because their internally they had such a high standard for themselves.
Mercury does put out extremely beautiful work. Like the stuff they do is so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
that's why I
they
wanted to work with them.
yeah. They animate a lot of Disney shows.
Yeah,
The Disney shows that are usually a Harmony are usually animated by Mercury. The ones that are like hand drawn are like that has to be like usually shipped overseas.
Korean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Korean.
look at my green.
Oh, Mercury Filmworks.
Part of the club. Yeah, no, that was a beautiful show process. It was just the problem was that because of the way my contract worked out, because friends in animation creators are paid per episode,
Hmm.
not usually on a weekly.
Mm.
So it's fine, like you can negotiate a price or set like lump sum per episode, but you don't usually know the production schedule yet.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happened was the production schedule was really long,
Hmm.
and we had already negotiated a certain fee, and if it had been spread out like evenly over the weeks from free from production to post, I would have made like $600 a week or something ridiculous, or $800 or something. So
Oh.
yeah, so basically they wouldn't change the cost or the payment per episode, but what they did was compromise. And so when the animatics were locked, I became non-exclusive.
Oh, good.
So when I was in post, I was non-exclusive, and I made like jack shit
Oh
from my
man.
show. But
Can
and
you?
that would have been maybe okay. I was hoping it would be okay, but then the animation industry fell apart. Um,
Oh
Yeah.
no.
and,
What
and yeah,
our patron Puzzle Glum asks, what's your advice or tips for young aspiring showrunners?
well, I think that right now is not just to be completely honest, it's not the best time to pitch in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because I think it like gives you this really beautiful opportunity to take a moment and like feed your own soul basically and get some other job, whether it's like working at Trader Joe's or tutoring or whatever,
Yeah.
if you can't get an animation job. And but really take whatever free time you have, especially if you don't have like too many obligations, and work on your short or work on like whether it's your or saving for your short, like put a certain amount of money into a savings pot every month. And then when you have a decent amount of money, you can produce a short if you can't animate it yourself. And I just think it's a really good idea to prepare pitches even now, because then when people start, they become hungry again for shows, you'll be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No,
And
that's
a
smart.
lot of people, I think, will be a beat late on it. So, yeah, I just would say try to see this time as a time to get prepared. And it doesn't mean if you are able to pitch, you shouldn't pitch. Like, definitely go ahead and pitch. Just keep your expectations in check because I've been attached to some pretty big IPs that haven't that didn't go
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
even in the pitch, like that weren't didn't go into development. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, and that's not to say that there aren't cases where original shows are being made or, you know, surprising shows are being bought. But yeah, just in general, I see it myself as a time to like focus on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
um,
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I think that's really smart, and I think it's a very real assessment of the landscape right now. So it's good for people to be aware of that.
yeah, and to be like uh hopefully make people feel better. Like when I was in grad school for animation, it was during the like 2008, 2009 recession.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was in school, basically, I was taking that time to focus on myself. And then by the time I got out of it, the industry was shaping up
Mm-hmm.
again. So just know that it goes in these waves. And if this is really what you want to do, keep doing it. And I feel like there are going to be more and more different ways to approach getting to make things. So there's actually, I think, going to be a lot of opportunity, just not where you expect it, like not necessarily at the networks.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I do feel like we have to be paying more attention to like other what's like avenues.
Yeah, and like look at what won Best Picture, Best Animated Feature at the
Yeah.
Oscars. It was Flow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these big budget animated movies didn't win. This little art film by basically a single director. I mean, he had a lot of help and resources, but basically it was made by him.
Yeah, it was a very small budget. I think the budget was
Yeah,
something like 3 million, which is
yeah,
extremely
yeah,
small for a feature.
yeah. So I think that's encouraging, and also it tells you a little bit about where we're at.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I
And
think people are starting to gravitate towards like creators again.
I think we're seeing that across the board. I think that's on social media. I think people respond more
Mm-hmm.
to things with like a personal touch, a little bit more of a niche thing than like something that feels like it was made by a company.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Linux.avi on Instagram. As someone who is almost stuck in a college STEM major and is self-learning animation, storytelling, and draftsmanship, is it a good idea to try out making a full short project with stories and characters, even if I'm just getting to know storytelling. Or she wants to stick to doing small projects and slowly work on the big thing in the background.
Mhm. Um, I think that so she's in STEM. Yeah, I would say this is my real advice. Don't quit what you're doing right now. Um,
Yes.
just because there truly isn't a lot of work. Like I think it's like 80% of the Animation Guild members are out of work. So definitely if you're already on a path, you can continue. And it sounds like you're pretty young if you're in college. You know, you're probably in your 20s. You have like a long journey ahead of you and plenty of time to pivot. And yeah, so I would say work on your own stuff, um, like when you have time, and try to be pretty consistent about it though, and don't stop creating things.
That's awesome. Very, very much big agree. Very
Yeah.
much a conversation a lot of animators are having right now, or like people in the guild are thinking about switching careers. I'm just being real right now because I do
Yeah,
think that's,
that's what I can't not be real. Like,
yeah.
I don't think it does any service to people.
No.
But at the same time, I hope that this is kind of carried through is that I'm pessimistic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's always going to be an appetite for animation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, Bluey is the number one streamed show across the country, the most popular show across the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an animated show about a dog family. And
Mm-hmm.
remember, Joe Brum loved my book.
Remember
Yeah.
that?
Remember it.
So, you know, what
Yeah.
else proof do you need? Um,
What
what other
else
proof do you
proof?
need? What else proof?
So
No, that's
Linux,
so smart.
yeah, .avi also has a follow-up question, which is, would making a story Bible, even at a beginner level, for a self-driven project be a good way to have your world building established?
Yes. With Strawberry Vampire, I'm doing that. I'm building out like, but more since I know I want to go the indie route, I'm
Mm-hmm.
building out like a complete strategy, like brand strategy Bible for it, like showing because showing how it can extend into other avenues of media too.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think in general, you should try to put together a solid document about your show.
Hmm.
And what I also, even if you're not putting together a Bible, you need to have a solid understanding of how your show works and like basically who the characters are, what the world is, all that good stuff. And part of that reason is because if it ends up in production miraculously, if you don't have a handle on, like, for example, what drives stories, then you're going to be like up shit's creek because you don't even know for sure if it works,
Hmm.
like as a show. So I think doing all that exploration is not only good to have a pitch, but also just good for you to know about your show.
Mm,
Smart. Yeah.
very smart. Hank Humble asks, what would you say are some of the most important things to you when developing a story that is coming of age or childhood growth related?
In general, I think a pattern has been, if I look at all my work, that I want like offbeat kids to feel seen.
Mm,
And so with Pubertina, it was like this girl who was just having a really hard time
mm,
dealing with puberty. And it was based on my own experience, like getting my period really early and being like twice as tall as everyone. And you
mm,
always know there are a few girls like that in elementary school, um, and who are like developing a lot faster and everything. And I felt like an outsider. Like I felt like everyone was looking at me.
mhm,
And then so that that inspired Pubertina. And then because like the kids in your grade aren't on your wavelength.
mhm.
Yeah.
So anyway, but then with Goldie, I had this feeling because I came up with the idea in 26, or I started developing the short in 2016
Hmm.
when Trump was elected. And I just felt like so angry, and I felt so disrespected as a woman because of, who he was and how he treated women. And so I had this urge like to create a character that was a girl who took up space.
Hmm.
That just was like my instinct, what I felt I needed to focus on of all my ideas. And so naturally, a giant girl felt perfect for that.
Hmm.
Um, and just like by existing, she's like, you're forcing everyone to be in her space, kind of. So, yeah. And then with Strawberry Vampire, it's based on my Jewish Hungarian family and largely based on my mom's cousin who was like 8 or 9 when she came to America. Franny's a little older. She's more like a tween, but Marika, what's her name? She had a really hard time assimilating. And so it's kind of a show that I hope speaks to immigrants, and which is a really insane topic right now. It's very like horribly relevant,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Assimilating to a new culture is really is it can be really difficult because it's like such a unseen like I kind of call it like a another layer of language that you have to learn. It's like first
Yeah.
you learn the spoken language and the words because that's like very obvious. It's like you need that to like be able to talk to someone and ask for like very simple things. But then it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
culture is like this kind of like invisible language that if you don't quote unquote speak it correctly, people don't you
Yeah.
you can't really meaningfully interact with people. Uh
What I absolutely love about this show that I've created is like Franny has a very critical eye of America, and like basically is like an alien trying to make sense of all these weird customs. Like
mhm,
she in her opinion, America is like the weird. Americans are weird.
Mm-hmm.
Not Strawbanians. She's from Strawbania.
mhm.
So yeah, it's fun because I get to like mock things through her voice. And, um, I think it
Yeah.
like is kind of something we need, that levity about how incredibly dumb this country is.
Well,
For
it's
sure.
interesting that you bring that up because that's something that sometimes talking to some execs or like has been brought up. They're like, "Well, you're French, like it would be interesting to hear like your point of view, like growing up here and everything." But
Hmm.
it's so hard to do it in a way where it's like because I'm obviously what I'm talking about right now is from the point of view of trying to sell a show to a network that's going to be shown to millions of people. And I was
Yeah,
like, I can't go too critical because else it's going to be a huge turnoff to a lot of Americans tuning in. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I struggle with that idea a lot, and then eventually I was like, I don't think I can truly because there are a lot of like funny things about like the culture
Well,
here. Yeah.
I think that you can. There are ways of being critical in. Okay, so
You know?
the lens that you're going to be that you would be talking through, right, is one that it's not just critical of like whatever politics or the kind of your go-to things that you're probably
no,
thinking of off
politics
the top of your
doesn't go
head,
into it. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So, but the interesting thing that you would bring is that you see things that everyone else takes for granted as
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
being like strange, and you
normal.
could and you and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and you'd be able to talk about like there are
Yeah.
things that I wouldn't think of, like at the oh, okay, here's one. I heard that it's strange that when women in America see each other, their voices get really high and they're like, oh my God, and people from outside the country are like, what is going on? Like, there's things like
Except
that I
Japan.
feel like we yeah, we sort of take those things for granted, and that's not necessarily I can't picture anyone getting upset about that, but that's an interesting point of view because you don't normally think about like, oh, that's a weird thing.
Yeah.
So for my Kickstarter rewards, one of the rewards was Franny's Guide to America, a PDF I made.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's all about that, like how she views certain things that, Americans take for granted.
100%. I mean, there was like the biggest thing that one of my biggest learning curves was to realize when people ask me what I was doing this weekend, it doesn't mean that they wanted to hang out with me. It's just small talk.
Yeah, that's really funny.
That's great.
It's like
that's hilarious.
In France, you don't ask someone, if you ask someone like, oh, what are you going?
Like rude.
Yeah, what are you doing later tonight? It means you want to hang out. It means I'm asking you if you're busy. So then, when someone's asking you that,
I'm so sorry.
But that can lead to so many funny interactions that
it's just surprising because it's like because when they would ask me, I would be like, oh, nothing in particular, what about you? And then they would be like, oh, well, here's my whole plan. And I was just like, oh, okay, wait, well, we're definitely not hanging out because you have a plan.
You're way too busy.
It's very clear that they wanted to talk about what they're doing that weekend, and they alley-ooped it to themselves.
Well, I would say you can be cynical and go that way, or you could just go the how do you pronounce his name? Dale Carnegie, like the guy who did How to Influence and Influence People. It's just small talk. This is both a thing. You know, we both experienced the weekend. The weekend is real for everybody, and it's harmless, so you can bring it up.
I would say it's changed a little bit for me, like gone back to meaning something as a mom.
Yeah.
Because like I'm always trying to schedule play dates for my daughter because she's an only child, partly. And I want her to like see her friends a lot. So when I ask like another mom, what are you guys doing? What do you have this weekend? Like I'm usually like trying to get a feel for whether or not I can make a play date.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah, the key is to queue up that question and then also pair it with
because
like
I don't
just
be
a little
humiliated,
like a face of expectation and hope. Like, what were you doing this weekend? or what?
A great, did you ever watch the Kroll Show?
Yeah.
There was a great sketch where he plays this referee character that's always trying to get close to the basketball players and ask what their weekend plans are, like if they want to hang out after the game and stuff. It's really funny.
Or just what are your weekend's plans, please? Like you just kind of like, you know, the little hint in there, like you want to hang out.
Yeah, also I can find out if they are busy, then I don't have to put myself out there, you know.
That's true.
For a play date.
Talking about being softly rejected for weekends planned, Hank Humble asks, what is the best song to cry to?
So right now, for me at least, the best song to cry to is Lazarus Drug from Bluey from the last episode.
Now, is that a week cry or a weekend cry? Or do you have a different song for the weekend to cry to?
That's a anytime cry.
That's
I mean, even more so watching that episode. But that song really affects me. And then the other go-to is a song called Trouble by Cat Stevens. And it was featured in the movie Harold and Maude.
Great, Rex. I think we have two more questions. One from Alistair on Newgrounds. What is a good philosophy and approach to time management for productions?
Or productions.
I think
like if you're producing something on your own, they probably mean.
Yeah, let's go with that one, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I try to ask the artists working on it how much time they think they'll need,
Hmm.
and try to go from there. And, they'll tell you if it's not enough time. And then you can make a production schedule. Like I had one for Pubertina, and I also had animation status sheet I made for myself. So I would like highlight when the roughs were done,
Hmm.
when the rough pass, the first pass, final, whatever, cleanup. And that was a really good way. So I would have it all in shots
Mm-hmm.
or scenes, whatever you call them. And it was a great way to see where I was, how much more work there was. And yeah, so I would say you can shoot for a certain date, like with Strawberry Vampire, since when I found out that a scene was going to be animated, I thought, okay, I want to give them like more time. I can't expect them to do it fast or anything.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, it would be really cool if it came out on Halloween.
Hmm.
um, and so that just became my goal. And I scheduled everything out based on that. Like when the storyboard artist is going to be done, then I give a week to the editor because I asked him what time he needed. And then, you know, but I'd say find out the timelines of the people you're working with first
Hmm.
and kind of build it out from there, because
Mm-hmm.
then you can have like more reasonable expectations.
Hmm. And our final question from Dredo Peter: were there any unexpected challenges when writing your new book?
You mean while I was writing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that fraud thing creeped in sometimes, even though I've like had a lot of success in animation.
Like imposter
Yeah,
syndrome.
Like,
imposter
why should I be
syndrome.
giving this advice? That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, like
Hmm.
who the fuck do you think you are?
Hmm.
And I would have to like take a break from it. It would almost like disgust me. I can't explain. Like, do you
Oh
ever
yeah, it
feel
goes deep.
disgusted by your work? Ever?
Yeah, no, I
I
know what you
don't
mean.
know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's yeah, when you're like, what?
Especially when you're making yourself vulnerable, it feels like kind of nauseating sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that
so
happens
yeah.
in general when I write too much about myself. Like for instance,
Uh-huh.
if every time I make a demo reel or I have to like write an artist bio, I'm like like I feel like I'm
Yeah.
because it's like I'm like selling myself here, or like at each individual step it feels like you have to quantify like why you should be trusted with this, or like you're proving yourself with every new
Yeah.
like chapter or
Like,
whatever.
for
Hmm.
example, I think figuring out a pilot is really hard, and figuring out episodes, which I get hired to do a lot. But when I got to the chapter in my book where it was like the pilot, I think, chapter, I got like didn't want to do it because the thing is what I think makes the book really neat too is I develop an original show along with the reader.
Hmm.
So I just like, I don't come in with an idea, but kind of through stream of consciousness, I narrow down on an idea, and then I start going through the steps always like with my idea as well. And so for the pilot one, I was like having trouble with it. And so I was procrastinating a lot. Um,
Hmm.
so I didn't want to do it.
I get it.
Yeah,
But yeah.
it's something that I've realized when I feel like I want to procrastinate. I'm like, oh, that means something. That means that I'm trying to do something difficult. It's helped me a lot not beat myself up too much. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's like okay, I'm not being lazy or bad. It's just that like
Yeah.
I'm trying to do something difficult.
Yeah.
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 I,
Totally.
I've had this conversation with my wife a lot, because there are times when like I'm working on something that is cool, that is good for me, that is my thing. And when I'm procrastinating, sometimes she'll be like don't you like this thing? Like why
Right,
aren't you
right.
excited to work on it?
I totally get that. Yeah.
And I think that there's like it's partly because it's important to you and it's precious to
Yes.
you. It makes it
You want it
harder,
to be perfect.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But also, I th- I think sometimes there's a pressure on you to enjoy every part of the process, and then when you're not,
Yeah.
you're like, do I
Yes.
like? Is there something wrong with me, or is this idea bad, or am I bad at doing this, or
Do you want to know a secret?
what?
Do it.
I kind
Say
of
it.
hate writing.
So
Yeah,
funny.
there we go. Writing is very
But
hard for me
well,
too.
except when I'm working on okay, except when I'm working on something I'm inspired by, or when I'm working on my own stuff and it's clicking,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
then it's really enjoyable. And so that's where I feel I'm at now with Strawberry Vampire, and it's a really nice
Yeah,
phase
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to be
Mm-hmm.
in. Yeah.
That's
But it's
so
like
That's hilarious
anguish
that
to
you said
me.
that though.
Yeah. I hate when things aren't working. Like I get really frustrated. Um, and
Yeah.
then when they click, I'm really happy. So I'm not great with the unknown in general, I guess.
talking about things not clicking and like struggling. When do you experience creative block? And when you do, what do you do to kind of like deal with it?
Yeah, I do experience creative block on a micro scale, like with stories, and on a it's the opposite of micro,
Macro?
Macro, yeah.
macro.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
a macro scale, which is like more with ideas like and starting to work on some big project. Because well, for a long time I kind of lost my mojo after Goldie ended. I just for some reason I told myself like I couldn't work on my own things. I just had to try to make money and stuff, which
Yeah,
there was a
that's
realness to
tough.
it. But I think then finally I came to the point when I was doing a little better, like I had paid some credit card debt off. Um,
Hmm.
I felt like empowered, like, okay, I deserve this. Like, I can take the time to get excited about another idea. And it's like almost like I have to give myself permission sometimes.
Yep.
And then on a micro scale, like I just need to walk away from it for a bit.
Yeah, I love that first part about like giving yourself permission and also like kind of like timing things out too, because it is so expensive to make animation, and sometimes the unfortunate reality is that like you have to wait to like kind of like gather a little bit more money so you can make the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hear what you want to plug. Obviously, there's the book.
Yes. Please check out the book and go to my website, www.emilybrundage.com. Also, if you check out my Instagram at Emily Brundage, you'll see all the amazing creators and showrunners and writers who loved the book and recommend it highly. Yeah, so people have also messaged me who have started using it for their projects, and it's been really gratifying to see how it's been helping people.
Mm.
So there's been a really positive response, both in a practical, like it's been practical for people, and it's been a fun read for people. Um, so there's that, and then also just follow me on Instagram to follow the saga of Strawberry Vampire. I'll keep making updates on where it's at. And I might start a Patreon soon, like I mentioned, maybe. So look out for that. But I'll just keep be updating mostly on Instagram. Yeah, I think that's it. You can
Woo!
check out the Kickstarter if you want to kick some money into it. It always helps.
Is
You
it
can
still, let's see.
do late pledges.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, that's awesome. I didn't know you could do late pledges. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah. If you hit your goal, you know.
That's awesome. So if I go to rewards, I
You
can,
can't get rewards though after the thing
oh,
ends.
so you go
It's
to
just if they really like you and they want to
Yeah.
support.
trying to see if I go to the campaign. So I'm on the campaign page right now, and I am looking at where I can donate more if anybody's interested.
Oh, you mean donate even though it's hit its initial goal?
Right, you said because for the like late pledges, maybe.
Yeah, you should be able to, but I'll look into it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we fact checking this live, V? Are you
No,
debunking? Like, oh,
I'm
it's time to finally call you out for things that you're saying.
Emily. No, I was curious because I'm curious to see if I can ask for late
Oh,
pledges on my project. I wonder how
yeah,
that
yeah.
works, and I wonder,
Um,
and I thought that was cool. It would have been a cool plug if people wanted to like give a couple bucks for the project.
yeah,
But
I know. But please follow it. I mean, honestly, we have enough money to make the animatic, so
yeah.
that's fine for now. But to make more episodes and other stuff, I'll have to start the Patreon. I already wrote the
Nice.
second episode.
Yeah, the art is so
Woo!
cute. This is such an exciting project.
Thanks,
Um,
V.
Thank you so much, Emily, for being our guest and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. This was so fun. I love watching artists draw my characters.
And thanks to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTP Block, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor Clemens for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Abuka for creating the short clips we've been putting out.
If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews, and we also have now a big chunk of the interviews that's behind a paywall so that you can only access it through the Patreon. And you can have access to our Discord community. Click the link in the description of this episode to follow Emily's projects and to find our Patreon. Another great way you can support the podcast is liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing it with everybody. I've been your host, V.
And I was Sean. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.